But in May 1941, a raid on Karol's local church would deprive him of one of the few things he had left to hold on to. The Germans had always been suspicious of the Catholic Church in Poland, but they feared outright rebellion if they outlawed it completely. Instead, many were closed down, and others restricted to 2 masses a week, often under the eyes of the Gestapo. No dissent from the clergy was tolerated.
The priests were eating their supper when a Gestapo officer called Paul Zilbert burst into the dining room. He was responsible for the Catholic Church in Krakow. They entered and shouted, "Everybody up against the wall! You are all under arrest!" Then he said, "Why are you putting ideas into young people's heads? Why are you trying to organize them? Why do you say that Poland will rise again? Poland is gone. It will never come back. Those of you young enough to work will be sent to forced labor for the glory of the Third Reich. The rest will be sent to concentration camps."
12 priests from Karol Wojtyła's parish of St. Stanislav Koska were accused of inciting rebellion amongst the young. 8 of them would die in Auschwitz. Like many others, Karol was left to pray alone. Into this void stepped self-appointed evangelists offering help and religious guidance. One would have a profound and dramatic influence on Karol's life. His name was Jan Tyranowski.
Jan Tyranowski was an odd figure. John Paul, as Pope, later spoke of him with enormous affection as somebody who'd been terribly important in his life. I think he sounds a bit creepy, to be honest. He used to hang around at the back of the local church looking for young men to draw into his group.
Hey, you young man. Stop!
I have something I want to discuss with you. I've been watching you.
Why?
Look, just listen to me for a minute. There are things I want to talk to you about. Important things.
What kind of things?
I can't explain here. You must come with me.
He trained as an accountant, but he was working as a tailor at the time out of a 1-bedroom flat, and he used to ask these young men back and teach them about St. John of the Cross, a great mystic figure who became very important in John Paul's life.
And he sit.
Karol got a mystical connection with God through this man who, in some ways, was quite an extreme character, and some people were quite uncomplimentary about him.
And his feet were as the feet of a bird.
I didn't like Jan Tyranowski. He looked odd and spoke strangely and was always smiling in a way I found annoying. But Karol kept explaining to me that I shouldn't pay so much attention to these superficial details, and I should concentrate instead on the man within.
Leopard and his feet.
Karol became a member of Tyranowski's group, an act of resistance defying Nazi attempts to control the church.
The mouth of a lion.
At their meetings, Tyranowski introduced his pupils to obscure Christian thinkers and immersed them in a highly personal style of preaching.
And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet.
Father Mikhail Safarsky was 13 years old when he became one of Tyranowski's pupils.
He had a huge influence on people. He was mesmerizing. Once you talked with Jan Tyranowski, you would find it impossible not to come back and talk to him for a second, a third, even a 10th time.
Impressed by Karol's faith and dedication, Tyranowski singled him out as a particularly promising student.
Deadly wound was healed.
Why, Jan, why was the wound healed?
Because Satan healed the beast. Satan healed one of his heads.
Again.
No, they did.
You could see they really liked each other, and it was a deep friendship. Tyranowski considered him his spiritual son.
And upon his horns and crowns.
Tyranowski was the kind of father figure, a mentor basically, someone who was directing his, and obviously put him in the direction of what was called the Living Rosary.
The Living Rosary was a series of underground prayer groups, an attempt to spread religious resistance throughout the city. Tyranowski appointed Karol as what was known as an animator, responsible for encouraging the spiritual development of a group of 15 young men.
So this gave him, if you will, his first experience of spiritual leadership with others, with his peers. And this had an enduring influence on Wojtyła's life.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those.
Karol's faith grew stronger as the world outside descended further into darkness. In the spring of 1942, the Nazis began to implement the final solution: the systematic genocide of the entire Jewish population.
Just random things could decide whether you lived or died. And I think that for a young man, that's a very, very formative experience, particularly a thoughtful young man like Karol Wojtyla. I think what it made him do is turn on the resources that he did have as an escape, and particularly on the resources that religion gave him. So he looked to the certainties of the Catholic Church as something to hang on to amid this moral chaos.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Karol Wojtyła was a man who loved people. The terrors of the occupation must have had a massive impact on him. Looking back today, I think that he was trying to look after us. He wanted to protect us from the horrors of the occupation that we had to deal with every day. He was an absolute enemy of violence and war.
Undoubtedly, the war increased his understanding of human suffering. Karol came to know the full extent of human hatred. How it is possible for one person to take away another's life and to terrorize people. We began to ask ourselves questions. Why is there so much evil among people? Why is there so much wickedness?
We were totally swallowed up in a great eruption of evil, and only gradually did we begin to realize its true nature. Polish culture is Christian to its deepest roots. It cannot be torn away from its Christianity without being damaged.
We didn't know exactly what was going on inside his mind, what he was really thinking. But we could all see he was changing very quickly in pursuit of his final goal.
We met for the rosary twice a week, and we used to walk home together and talk about prayer, religion, and priests. And as time went on, we began to talk more and more about the duty of priests in wartime, how they weren't reaching out enough, and how they needed to have direct contact with real people to try and make their lives better.
Let's go try and place down here. I think we can make our own group. What do you think?
For 3 years, Karol had confronted the daily evils of life in occupied Krakow. Soon he would reveal a belief which had slowly been growing stronger inside him.
In the face of the spread of evil, the horrors of war, the meaning of the priesthood, its purpose in the world, have become clearer to me.
In the autumn of 1942, at a meeting of the Rhapsodic Theatre, he announced a decision which would shock his friends and change his life.